Ugh, look at them flirting. What an eyesore. But don't get it wrong. Trust me, this is no happy family. That woman there isn't my mom. She's Rochelle, our housemaid. I repeat, housemaid. But it looks like she has her sights set on becoming my stepmom. Ugh. We only hired her because after my mom passed away, Dad and I struggled to deal with our grief, and our clumsiness as well, so tidying the house didn't take priority. I suppose Rochelle was an okay maid. Can't deny that she's a good cleaner, and her cooking is tasty. However, recently, I've noticed that she always cooks Dad's favorite meals. Also, they laugh and flirt and constantly give each other these gooey-eyed looks. Yuck! Today, she even took out her handkerchief and attentively wiped my dad's sweaty forehead. Who does she think she is? She definitely wanted to hypnotize Dad. If she thought she'd have a slot in this house, she was totally wrong. I needed to do something about this. I had to talk to Dad right away. Dad, Mom didn't pass away that long ago, but it looks like you've already lined up her replacement. Didn't you hurt Mom enough by reconnecting with your ex right before she died?
What do you mean replacement? Brittany, you're being childish and unreasonable.
I don't know, and I don't care. But I want Rochelle to get out of our house immediately. She's for sure trying to get something out of you.
Okay, fine, if you insist. But make sure you find a new housemaid to replace her.
Ugh. So it turns out that finding a new maid who's actually good is nearly impossible. Dozens of people came to try out, but none of them were as considerate as Rochelle. Okay, after all, we still needed a maid, so I reluctantly let Rochelle stay until I found someone new. This didn't mean I was going to let my annoyance for her slide. I decided that while I was stuck in the same house as her, I may as well play some tricks on her to let out my anger. When she decided to cook, again, the divine chicken soup that my dad loved so much, I kindly added a little salt to make it more savory. But somehow, my dad still praised her delicious food. He must just be flattering her, right? So I tried it for myself. What? How could she do that? It tasted amazing. Ugh. Another time, I copied this trick I saw on TikTok by sticking layers of food wrap on Rochelle's door, then acting like there was an emergency. Quick! The oven is making weird noises. I think something's burning. Rochelle quickly ran out of the room and I couldn't help but laugh my head off. Her face was really funny. She then gave me this bewildered look and smiled helplessly. Ugh. Why did this woman never get mad? Okay then, let's step it up a notch. I decided to play the ultimate trick. Knowing that Rochelle was scared to death of cockroaches, I cut a cockroach shape out of paper and put it behind the fabric of her nightlight. That night, I was dozing off when I heard a screechy scream. Ah! Coming from Rochelle's room. Aha! Success! But she was so terrified that she fainted. Oops! Do you know what the most annoying thing is? Even after all the trouble I've caused her, Rochelle was still super sweet to me. She was always offering me cookies and asking me about my day and stuff. I felt like she was trying to play the role of a mother, and I didn't like that at all. She couldn't fool me. I knew she only put up with me to please my dad. Thanks to Rochelle, I could never be at ease, even in my own home. But recently, a very special person has come into my life and lit up my mood. It was totally by chance. That day, it had rained like crazy, so there were puddles everywhere. I was on my way home from the grocery store when a car drove whizzing by. I thought I was going to get a free bath, but then suddenly, an arm pulled me back and shielded me with his body. Just like in a romantic movie, standing there was a boy, soaking wet, asking if I was okay. Aww, he had totally swept me off my feet. We walked together for a while, and he told me his name's Chris, and he lives in the next neighborhood. That's it! I needed to find a way to impress Chris and also thank him for helping me. So, after some careful thinking, I decided to bake him a cake. I'd seen Rochelle bake before. It looked easy peasy. So I baked one and gave some to my best friend Sue to try. But she spat it out and said, "Ew, gross." I sadly sat in the kitchen, staring at my pathetic cake, and wondered where I'd done wrong. That's when Rochelle stepped into the room. But to my surprise, instead of laughing at me, she patted me on the shoulder.
Come here. I'll teach you how to cook.
Rochelle was a good cook, so I'd be stupid not to learn from her. This doesn't mean I like her, though. I just want to win my crush's heart. So after that, each day after school, Rochelle gave me a cooking lesson. Okay, so maybe she wasn't as bad as I first thought. We tried out different recipes together and came up with our own perfect formula. And finally, I could bake a lovely heart-shaped chocolate cake by myself to confess my love to Chris. And you know what? He said yes. I was so deeply in love with Chris that I totally forgot about my conflict with Rochelle. Chris often came over to my place. My dad and Rochelle loved him. So now, besides my dad's favorite food, Rochelle also makes Chris's favorites too. She's incredible. She could remember everything Chris loves and hates, even the trivia, like he's allergic to peanuts. We were just like a family, and I have to admit, it felt kinda good. And then, out of literally nowhere, the shock of my life happened. My dad passed away from cancer. I didn't even know he was ill. As you might guess, I totally broke down and didn't want to do anything after that. My mom and dad had both left me, just within a single year. But at least I still had Rochelle and Chris beside me. Rochelle took care of me like I was her actual daughter. I was going through such a tough time in life, but having them around made me feel like I wasn't completely alone. The grief had to fade away eventually, and it's gonna be okay from now on, I thought. Until one day, I was baking cupcakes when my dad's lawyer appeared and showed me the will. Turns out, my dad had left the house to me, but only on the condition that I had a guardian, some woman named Laura. Huh? That's odd. I don't know anyone named Laura, but wait, I think I've heard this name from someone. Oh, my mom. When she was in her last days, Mom once told me that my dad had been talking to his ex again, and her name was Laura. Could it be her? Did he seriously make his ex my guardian? Unbelievable! I had to get to the bottom of this. But how could I find this mystery Laura? I had no family. Well, besides my Uncle Colin, who was living in France. So I contacted him and told him everything. He flew back at once, and although I hadn't seen him in years, I couldn't hold back my emotions and ended up sobbing on his shoulder. And then he told me the horrible truth. Laura is none other than the woman who had just walked through the door. It was Rochelle, the woman who had been living in my house. I couldn't believe my ears. What on earth is going on? So Rochelle moving in was no coincidence? My dad sneakily snuck her in as a maid so they could be together? My pain and disappointment were overwhelming, but I had to calm down so I could think rationally. I knew I needed to be smart and outplay Rochelle at her own game. Since then, I started watching Rochelle and noticed something strange. Rochelle and Chris were a bit too close and intimate. I often saw them whispering to each other when they thought I wasn't looking. What did this mean? Could it be that Rochelle was trying to coax my boyfriend into one of her dark schemes? Or, worse still, was the guy I loved cheating on me with an older woman? My suspicions deepened. When a few days later, Chris told me he was sick, so I had to take the school bus for a couple of days. And Rochelle also asked me for a few days off. Could it just be coincidence? I didn't think so. So I decided to be a detective for once. Right after Rochelle left, I started following her. And with no surprise, she went to my boyfriend's house.
Hi, Mom.
Excuse me? Mom? She's his mom? So that means she not only flirted with my father, but also planted her son to distract me to take over my family's property? I trusted them. How could they be so cruel? Suddenly, I remembered a detail that I didn't notice until now. After eating the food she'd cooked, for some reason, my father became weaker and weaker and eventually passed away. Did she poison him? If that's the case, then she really is a poisonous snake in human disguise. I immediately broke up with Chris and fired Rochelle, then went home and told Uncle Colin everything. At least I had him on my side.
Now what we need to do is refute her custody of the property. I'll take care of everything, and you just have to do what I say.
Then, Uncle Colin helped me prepare a lawsuit against Rochelle and her son for fraud. Those two will pay the price for what they did to my father and me. Oh, but the thing is, now Rochelle didn't live here. It felt so empty. I was so angry with her, but I also found myself missing her too. I loved and trusted her. And Chris too. And feelings like that don't just vanish overnight. But when I was still thinking about it, there was the lawyer. Again! And he was accompanied by Uncle Colin. What's happening now?
Miss Brittany Jensen hereby transfers the entire estate of 25 Oakwell House to Mr. Colin Jensen, as signed by both parties.
Huh? Signed? When did I sign that? I snatched the paper and shouted, "Scam! I never saw this paper! Uncle, what is this? Please say something."
I don't know. Just follow the legal documents.
No. So Uncle Colin was just pretending to care, when really he just wanted to trick me into signing over my house? Oh God. Thinking about it, it must have been that day. The day where he gave me a bunch of papers to sign, claiming that they were about me suing Rochelle and Chris. OMG, the lying con! At the time, I'd been so upset that I only skimmed the first page without looking at the following ones. I was too careless.
From tomorrow, Miss Brittany Jensen will have to return all assets to Mr. Colin Jensen. You have 24 hours to prepare.
I tried shouting at my uncle, and then I tried reasoning with him, but he didn't care. He just smirked at me and told me that he was just taking what was rightfully his. Ugh, what a vile man. So now, I have nothing left. I was kicked out of my own house and deceived by my own uncle. I don't know why I accidentally passed Chris's house just as he opened the door to take a delivery, and our eyes met. I turned and started to run away, but Chris caught up with me and grabbed my hand. Even after the awful way I treated them both, Rochelle and Chris still invited me inside and made me dinner. I ashamedly told them what happened. Then Rochelle told me everything. It turns out that my father found out that he had cancer a while ago, but he didn't tell me because he saw how upset I was after losing Mom, and he was afraid I would worry too much. Rochelle saw his health deteriorating and figured out what was wrong, so she volunteered to take care of him because she still cared for him. But as a friend, nothing more. As for the will, my dad understood Uncle Colin all too well and didn't trust him, so he gave custody to Rochelle. But unexpectedly, in the end, I still stupidly fell into his trap.
As for Chris, I really didn't know you two knew each other until you brought him home. But at that time, I didn't want to confess I was his mother and affect your relationship. I'm sorry, Brittany.
Britt, please stay here with me and Mom. We'll get through this tough time together, okay?
That's right, darling. No matter what, we'll never abandon you.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood you both.
It's okay. Everything will be fine from now on. You'll never have to do this alone.
Yeah, every dog has its day. This is totally not wrong. My life is nothing like my previous wealthy one, but I have something that my conniving, vulturous uncle doesn't have, and that's people who love and care about me. What my uncle did was wrong, and Rochelle and Chris are helping me to make a legal case against him. As for now, well, I still haven't given up on my passion for cooking and still practice with my master every day. And you know what? I just won first prize at the city cooking competition. Right, I better go, as I have a big treat planned for Rochelle and Chris.
I was walking in the classroom when a girl shouted, "Don't come in, we're getting changed!" I immediately stopped still. I heard them laughing like squeaking dolphins. Not knowing what to do, I frantically turned around to leave and bang! "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," I muttered to myself. What was that wall doing there, and why was there all these stars around in broad daylight? I fell to my knees, and yuck, my nose was bleeding. Then I saw this pretty girl staring down at me. Alas, was she an angel? "Don't worry, with our help you'll soon get used to this school. I'm Dolly, by the way." Then she winked at me. Nope, she wasn't an angel. She was a student. So my name's Dean, and the first day in my new job as a homeroom teacher wasn't going as planned. I have experience teaching physics at co-ed school, but never in a private all-girls school. You see, houses for teachers and high salaries were the reasons why I chose to transfer here. To be honest, if I haven't overindulged in the stock market and ended up in debt, I certainly wouldn't have taken off from home and severed all contact with my wife, Anna. She paid all my debts, and that was too much for a man's pride. So here I was, trying to make a quick buck so I could pay her back and win back her heart. From the get-go, I knew this school would be different to what I was used to. As when I first came to meet the principal, I saw a group of giggling teenage girls huddled outside of her office. They whispered among each other, started taking pictures of me, and even made finger heart signs. At the end of the meeting, the principal said, "You'll be the second male teacher in our school, and between you and me, Mr. Richmond is somewhat of an old fogey, so I think you'll be a wind of change here," she grinned. After that, she introduced me to the other teachers in the staff room. As I shook hands with Mr. Richmond, he smirked and said, "They're going to eat you alive." What a strange old man. What did he even mean by that? I'm a confident professional guy, and they were a bunch of teenage girls. This job would be a breeze, right? Then I turned and saw a group of students with their lips pressed to the frosted glass, then they giggled and ran off. Anyway, back to my first full day here. I let Dolly help me up to my feet, stuck a bit of tissue in my nose to stop the bleeding, then reminded myself of my motto. To know oneself is true progress. Then I took a deep breath and tried to start my lecture in a professional manner. Dozens of pairs of eyes glared up at me. I felt like I was being eyed up for dinner. Then there was the mess. Flung about the place were gym clothes. Ew, and even worse, there was this odd smell that hit my olfactory organs directly. It wasn't the sweet sense of perfume or anything. It was like intense body odor. How strange. Maybe my sense of smell had been affected by my bleeding nose. Never mind, the lesson must go on. When I was walking down the class, a shout came from the corner. "Alert code red!" Then this pink dart flew past my face, and I had to lean back to dodge it. At that moment, my heart stopped beating for a second. Just like in a Japanese manga, the girl caught it in a ninja way. But wait, I looked closely and found out that it was just a tampon. My God, what on earth was going on? Well, my first day on the job had been eventful. I needed a lie down and a strong drink. But I bet things would calm down when the excitement of my presence wore off, right? Wrong. As each day seemed to get crazier. I soon had my own fan club. As every lunchtime, Dolly and her friends followed me around. And every morning they brought me a bottle of juice with some cute note stuck to it. Then things spiraled, as one day in the cafeteria, Dolly sidled up to me, twizzled the strand of her hair and said, "Sir, I like you." Knowing full well what she meant, I tried to say as nonchalantly as I could, I like you too, you're a good student." Then she put her arm around me and in a flirty voice said, "No, I mean I like you." I turned as red as a tomato and instantly loosened my tie. Jeez, it was hot in here. "Help, send help." I forced a smile and politely told her I had a meeting, then I walked off as quickly as possible. Talk about being intense, but luckily, I had sports day to distract me from all the teenage girl hormones. I was in the athletics squad back in the day, so I reserved my spot in the teacher's long-distance running race. As I was warming up, I saw Dolly and her friends standing at the sideline with a huge banner with my face on it. The other school teachers all giggled when they saw it. Cringe. Then the race started, and I was miles ahead of everyone else. This was an absolute breeze. I would definitely be the champion. Then I heard Dolly whistle over at me, and another girl shouted, "We love you, sir!" Then, I tripped over my own feet and fell over and sprained my ankle. Ouch! One by one, the teachers overtook me, even Mr. Richmond. Talk about humiliating. I wanted the ground to gobble me up. But then my fan club hurried over to me, and Dolly said, "You're still the best. You even look more handsome when running." Then she wiped the sweat off my forehead using a towel. I was too tired and my pride was too dented to react. I didn't think Dolly's crush on me was a big deal. This was common for teenage girls, right? But then one afternoon, I finished late and was walking across the girls' grounds when this aggressive-looking dude blocked my way. He pushed my shoulder and said, "You better stop flirting with my little Dolly and stay away from her, you hear me?" Huh? What was going on? Then Dolly appeared. She looked different than usual with her face covered in makeup. She charged up to the guy, stared at him, and yelled out, "Hank, we're so over, so go away. I'm into him, not you." Contrary to that gentle look in class, this version of Dolly was quite frightening. Just a few lifts of her eyebrows were enough to make that guy sulk away. Then Dolly turned to me and sighed. "Sorry about him. He made me realize that I like men, not boys." Then without giving me time to reply, she blew me a kiss, then shimmied off. I stood there stunned. What just happened? Dear God, please get me out of this mess now. From then on, I tried my best to avoid Dolly and the rest of my fan club. I had my lunch with the boring teachers in the staff room and never marked work in my classroom anymore. One day I was strolling along the corridor when I spotted Dolly up ahead, so I quickly turned up a different corridor and bump! I walked straight into the new girl, and we both tumbled over. Books and stationery flying everywhere. I frantically apologized and helped her up, but she looked at me and said, "Oh, so this is where you're hiding." "What? Uh-oh." It was Chloe, my sister-in-law. I quickly gathered up her stuff and bundled it into her arms, then I rushed off. She shouted after me, "Do you know that Anna's worried sick about you?" A stab of pain raced through my heart. Without turning back, I told her, "I'm sorry. I'll go home when I'm able to pay her back." Great. Now I had Chloe to avoid too. She was persistent. She waited for me after class and nagged me to come back home. But who can understand my feeling? I could never look at Anna's face again until I earned enough money. Then one day after school, when I was leaving my classroom, I received a message from Chloe. "I'm at the pool. Please come. I'm in big trouble." What was going on? Afraid that something bad was happening to her, I rushed over there, sweaty and out of breath, to see her standing there looking perfectly fine. Confused, I asked her what was up, and she shrugged and said, "I accidentally dropped my earring in the pool." "What?" I frowned. "I don't have time for childish games." I was about to leave, but then I saw a furious-looking Dolly heading over. "Hey, weird red-headed girl, just stop finding ways to flirt with my Deanie, you understand me?" Chloe smirked, and with crossed arms, she replied, "It's you who should stay away from Deanie," she chuckled. "You surely don't want to wave a red flag at a bull." Dolly let out a war cry before she charged at Chloe, but she dodged out of the way, and Dolly fell headfirst into the pool. Chloe rolled her eyes. "Now, let me guess, she's going to pretend that she can't swim." Sure enough, Dolly started screaming. "Help me, please, Dean, I'm dying!" I thought it was another trick of Dolly's, but no, she was still struggling under the water, so I quickly jumped in to rescue her. Oh no, she wasn't conscious, and I started giving her mouth-to-mouth. After trying for a while, Dolly seemed to regain consciousness. But when I was a little bit relieved, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "What are you doing, Dean?" I stopped and turned around. I couldn't believe it. There, with a look of complete distress on her face, was Anna. Dolly sat up and said, Who's she?" "I'm his wife, but I think I shouldn't be here." And then she stormed off. I rushed after her and tried telling her it wasn't what it looked like. She let out this heartbroken wail, then sobbed out, "You left me without saying a word, and then I find you kissing some teenager. I never want to see you again." Then she took off her wedding ring and threw it at me. I honestly thought I'd lost Anna forever. My heart was breaking. But then a sheepish-looking Dolly came over to us and said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't drowning. I made it up so he would kiss me. It's all my fault. Please don't be mad at him." Then Chloe appeared and backed up Dolly's story. She also confessed that she'd set the meeting between me and Anna up at the pool so we could talk to each other and sort it all out, but then Dolly appeared and messed it all up. After that, Dolly finally realized that I'm a happily married man. She stopped all of her fan club stuff, but she still brings me juice every day, only this time with an apology note stuck to it. So I finally realized what a jerk I'd been, and I tried my best to make it up to Anna. I shouldn't have just ran away from my troubles and left the woman I love in the dark like that. That wasn't fair. As for this job, I guess it isn't so bad after all. So I'm still sticking around even though I'm finished paying Anna back. It's good for my ego being the hunk around the place, and now I'm kind of used to groups of giggling teenage girls and their mood swings. Ha!